Dayu family, and welcome to Dr. Mumbi's spiritual show. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways, family, all your ways, and that you're really constructing your own narrative, family. Because at this point, I know there's so many of you who have reached out to me from Babylon saying, I don't know if we'll get out. There's so many of you who find yourselves in various physical constraints, be it financial, be it location, be it whatever. But as long as you're still mentally and spiritually getting your narrative together, your life will change for the better. Absolutely, it must. And that will actually be what saves you. Because right now, family, there's like a splitting that's happening between two worlds. And the Babylonian world is falling away from our original Mama Earth as we enter a new season. And of course, we acknowledge you know, the ancestors in the wind who are always with us. Thank you so much to every single person that supports us, family. This is a show sponsored by you. And we appreciate love that you enable us to continue to do this for now. Definitely consider supporting us either on Patreon, where we have much more exclusive content, or on through a love donation on PayPal, and we'll send you a gift in the mail. Family, we've also started a Rumble channel, so that, you know, as Ascension, just planning. And thanks to, and big shout out to the person who recommended that. So we will be, you know, right now we're just putting all the content that was here there, but we will be transitioning to Rumble for some of those more hard hitting stories and finding, you know, a balance so that we can still share the most important truth, especially about the Jibby Jab family. Because it's like a lot of people instinctually knew, but so many didn't get it. It's crazy. And you know, which brings me even to what I want to talk about today. Sorry, family. The words. I'm so emotional about what I'm about to discuss. I just did a show talking about how 70 children in Gambia lost their lives because a cough syrup that was made in India, that was not even legal to sell to Indians, that they could only sell to Gambia, is what, you know, caused minor kidney failure in a lot of children, and they didn't make it, family. And this points to corruption and you know, the corrupt system that Africa is under. And I wanted to talk about how corruption is a foreign concept, family. Corruption is something that was brought in. Corruption is part of the Babylon narrative that keeps us in chains, because they constantly talk about how corrupt our presidents are, how corrupt our people are, how corrupt our government is. And it's always a half truth, because they never tell you for the president of Kenya to sell out Kenya, someone must have approached him with the deal, with the money, with how to do it. He didn't just come up with that on his own. And for the leaders like the Magufulis who have tried to do right by Africa, why do they all of a sudden just lose their lives? You see, this is the narrative that's not being told. And corruption is a foreign concept that came in with Babylon, that came in with democracy and multi-partyism and what exists today in Africa. This foreign political system, this foreign education system, this foreign morality. I remember I was having a discussion once with someone from Ghana, and they were saying, you know, a lot of the Ghanaian, well, you know, politicians were corrupt because they swore on the Bible or the Quran, which to them is like, doesn't have power. But if you were to call them to their ancestral altars in their villages and tell them to swear to on that, or if you were to bring in their traditional tools, the egg and whatever, you see, we think that is primitive. That's what Babylon will try and tell you, because they don't get it. So it's like Babylon's like, anything we don't get, we're gonna bash, because we don't get it. We're gonna make it sound like it's crazy, like it's, you know. but he was saying if you could just get these leaders to, you'd see a whole different kind of minister, kind of members of parliaments, and kind of presidents, because those are the things they fear. They don't have fear for the Bible. So if they're swearing on the Bible, it's like all bets are off. And corruption is not just on the side of the African. It is Babylon who has shown the African how to be corrupt, family. And I realized this when I moved to Mount Zion, or just now that I've moved out of the big cities. It's like there's still, in the villages, there's still that natural order where people behave well, because if you don't, there's like a social system. You'll be kicked out of society. You'll be ostracized. There's like such an intimate unit of the, for the community, that in that is like a natural justice. It's like when I first moved to the village and I was like constructing the shrine and all this stuff. One day, because it's a really long story, but like our road had been taken by the government, so I asked my staff to kind of put the fence on the rightful place after we'd been shown by the government officials. Anyway, the security, wanting a little something, came and rounded up all my workers and literally took them to the police station because they were interfering with public roads. After family, they'd received a call from the Mzungus saying that I was obstructing business and stuff like that. So you see, the corruption is already there. The security, under the instruction of the Mzungu overlords of this area, came and collected all my people. So when they collected all my people, this man came and grabbed my ladder and, went through the village and all the way home. And so when we came back, I was like, oh my God, the ladder's been stolen. Because, I had to go get my people out. No bribe was given. Sometimes it's just standing in the truth. That's a whole other story. But now when we all came back, I was like, oh my God, the ladder's been stolen. And I remember my supervisor was like, give us 20 minutes and we'll find out where it was. And the minute they went to the village, it was like, oh yeah, we saw so-and-so, he carried it here. Oh yeah, we saw so-and-so, he even took it to his house. And that's how the village life works, family. And even now, he brought the ladder back and he was trying to say, oh, he was a drunkard, of course, but he was trying to say how he was trying to keep it safe for me and trying to rewrite that narrative. But it's like, the villagers were like, yo, that's like the village thief, man. Like, you can't trust him and all this stuff. And it was so funny to just be in that situation. And I realized, like, I was in a new place, family. Like there was a whole different system of existence. But in Nairobi, the corruption, and the reason there's so much corruption in the cities is because you're away from these families, from these communities which hold you accountable. You're anonymous. And then the culture, the pervading culture is one of corruption and prostitution and stealing and everything. And that's the culture that gets you. And because of this anonymous nature, where you even feel like your guardian angels ain't seeing you, your ancestors ain't seeing you, you're just there out alone, you do some crazy things. Like some young innocent girls will come to Nairobi, become prostitutes. And then once they're done with that, they'll go back to their villages like nothing happened, settle, and they'll use that, maybe they've used that money to build their parents a home and do this and do that. Some get out of it and totally change and live another life. It's like I remember family, like growing up. There was some beautiful Somali girls that we used to hang out with and go clubbing with and live a crazy, in our late teens, early 20s. We'd go clubbing, just wildness, drinking, smoking, just living the dream. But by the end of our 20s, family, most of those Somali girls had totally gone into their communities. They'd been married. They now had children. And they even disconnected from us. We even stopped talking. And that chapter of their lives, it's like it never happened. It's like it was gone. Where, I mean, they literally used to come in, totally covered, and they'd remove their traditional garb, and they'd be in the skirts shorter than us. But at a certain point, they returned to their communities and they lived on. And it's because of this anonymous nature, and because we've accepted a certain narrative that is not ours, this narrative of corruption. And not even just the negative sides of corruption, but what our youth see as the positive sides of corruption, family. They see the corrupt living large, being able to buy big homes, having flashy cars, having all the women. The ones who are in gangs, the ones who are part of the secret societies of this world. They see their ministers and their members of parliament stealing. You read about it in the newspapers. And it seems like a one-sided affair, but that person will come back and back again and again and have corruption cases against him dropped, and people who were exposing him mysteriously disappear. And this is also the problem of having a foreign god sitting on our seat of power, family. Because the truth is, our people don't fear the foreign gods. In fact, the foreign gods have allowed them to have this corrupt nature and to just behave anyhow. Because there's no accountability. There's no desire to continue to exist for millions of years. It's like a lot of our people have been cloned. Where now, even if you bring up ancestors, they're like, oh, that's wicked, that's evil. They're the ones who even brought us here. No, it's the Babylonian that brought us here, family. And those of us who agreed, who entered an agreement with the Babylonians. Because words, remember I've said this, in the Agikoyo nation, which is part of the Bantu were literally across the whole of southern Africa, mainly southern Ethiopia. Some say we even came from the west of Africa. We came from Egypt. Stories for the days, family. But anyway, in the Agikoyo, as I've said before, we don't have words for rape. We don't have words for incest. We didn't even have words for the way sex is described. We don't have words for corruption. Because these were concepts that didn't exist in that time. You didn't want to be kicked out of that social order, that community. And that's why many Africans ran for this individualistic gospel that Babylon brought. Because I didn't have to be under these, what many felt were heavy laws of society, to behave right and to yield myself to the group, where the group is more important than the individual. In Babylon, the individual is more important than the group. That's why they say the world is flipped upside down and back to front. For Babylon, the individual is more important. The individual family, their nation. Like Babylon is always just thinking of me, 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 me. And that's the disease they've passed on to us. Corruption is not something that is just African or Afrocentric. And you see, that's the problem of even having our media being owned by foreigners. Because we're constantly hearing about how the minister of this is corrupt and this president is corrupt and this government stole this much money. But we never hear of the other people who came with that deal. It's only recently, actually, like there's a few, like Dangote, he had wanted to invest in Kenya, for example, and he talked about how there was a going rate where the previous government allegedly was demanding like 30% for every deal. So if you weren't going to give them the 30%, they weren't going to give you the deal. And he was like, forget it. And I think he went to, I don't know which neighboring country and built a cement factory there. And so he talked about it now when we got the new dispensation. Because you see, our governments act naive, but they know that we as Africans have something that Babylon wants, that the whole world needs. They know that. They know that they'll get away with it. They may have to sacrifice somebody here, sacrifice another somebody there, but they're down for that. They're playing in a totally different other playing field. And the story of corruption, because it only shows who is being, okay, if the African is being corrupt, even the European is corrupt, if not more corrupt, family. But you see, the European protect their narrative. So there's a way they release it, although now the narrative is working against them, stories for other days. But Africa, we don't go deep enough, family, to show that it's a people. There's a certain spirit that is ruling the world, that is Mzungu, that is black, that is Asian, that is Indian. And these are the people who are in control, and they're the ones who are dictating how things go, and they're the ones who have this corruption spirit. But the majority of people are not corrupt. It's like Hitler's most famous saying, where he says, tell a lie, a small enough lie, and repeat it over and over again. And the people will start to see it as the truth. And that's how you get away with atrocities. For so long, Africa has been told we're corrupt that we've even accepted it. But it's because there's no spiritual structure, family. There's no spiritual power in these foreign gods. And that's how the people at the top want it. Because let me tell you, a lot of these politicians and captains of industry, they belong to Masonic orders. They belong to secret societies. Or they're still connected, maybe some to the wicked witches or whatever. Because there was always a war between what I can call light and darkness. We both have those, the corrupt and the uncorrupt. Let me put it like that. But those that run the world know the world has nothing to do with the Jesuses of this world and with all these things. They know these things don't have power, but they know that this is the opioid. This is the opium. This is the tranquilizer of the people. It's not, the politicians know that the system, it doesn't work. They know democracy doesn't work, but they keep it because they're able to control the people that way. And they can become leaders without merit just by having money that can even be ill-gotten. They keep it because it benefits them. And they know that if they cleaned up the system, they probably wouldn't even be shortlisted to be their village leader. They're so corrupt. They're so rotten to the core. It's not like they don't see what's going on. And then a lot of them are also afraid because the minute they get into leadership, like we saw with our president, they're out going to Babylon to be told how things are run. And if you don't listen, you're literally just taken out. It's that simple. It's not rocket science for them. And that corruption at the head, at the governmental, corrupts the entire body family. To the point now when you go to Nairobi, everyone wants a bribe. Someone will do their job. A guard will do their job and show you where to park and everything. And then he'll come and be like, oh, can you buy me tea? It's just so natural. It's so second nature. Whereas in the village, you're leaving out expensive equipment and all these things, and no one will even touch it because there's a different social order at play. And a lot of quote unquote villages now are realizing that their way of life is way higher than that of the city. And they'll even tell you, hey, I'd rather even stay here. I'd rather bring up my children here. Nairobi is too wicked. And you can replace Nairobi with any major city across Africa. But corruption is a foreign concept that is maintained by the corrupt among us. And they love it when we say Babylon did this, Babylon did that. They love that narrative because there's no power in that narrative of corruption. It just maintains the status quo, family. You see, we have to recognize that sometimes it's not just pointing out something, but it's creating a shift and introducing something new that actually shifts the system. It's not so much about talking about corruption, but making morality and a high spiritual authenticity, like the high value. And that will change the morally corrupt around us. Like that's how this life works, family. It's not because sometimes when you're constantly talking about something, you actually give it power. which is why certain narratives are allowed to perpetuate themselves. Whereas if we were just to introduce, that's why they've blocked it so much, like the ancient African way of politics, of running, it's not even politics, of running our communities and our nations, it would shift everything so quickly, which is why they've made us demonize it so that we never look to that direction. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Until next time. Tuko pamoja.